Have you ever felt that the strange synchronicities in your life were not just personal signs but signals of a collective frequency pulling you into something greater? The fact that you are here, right now, reading these words, is not coincidence. It is resonance. The field has chosen you. And more importantly, it has entangled you with countless others who are awakening at this very moment. The fact that you are here, right now, reading these words, is not coincidence. It is resonance. The field has chosen you. And more importantly, it has entangled you with countless others who are awakening at this very moment. You may think you clicked on this message by chance, but what if I told you this is part of a quantum selection process? Millions scroll past without noticing. Thousands glance and move on, but your consciousness stopped. Why? Because your frequency carries a signature the universe has been waiting to activate. Reality doesn't shift only when an individual awakens. It shifts most profoundly when groups of souls begin vibrating in coherence, amplifying each other like tuning forks in a hidden orchestra. This is what mystics call collective entanglement, the invisible web of resonance that links you to people you may never meet, yet whose energy directly shapes your path. Think about the sudden alignments you've experienced meeting the right person at the exact moment, stumbling across words you needed to hear, or feeling the presence of unseen allies walking beside you. These are not accidents. They are the fingerprints of group frequency at work, weaving you into a reality upgrade that no single individual could create alone. And right now, you are standing at the threshold of this collective shift. The sensation you've carried that you're part of something larger than yourself isn't imagination. It is the field confirming that your personal awakening has synchronized with a greater wave of transformation sweeping across humanity. The question is, will you recognize this entanglement as the hidden key to shaping reality itself? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will change not only how you see yourself, but how you see the entire collective field that is silently sculpting the future. Have you ever wondered why a single person's presence can transform the atmosphere of an entire space? Someone burdened by stress enters, and suddenly the room grows heavy. Voix sharpen, silence lingers in corners. Another walks in radiant with joy, and without needing to speak, everyone feels lighter. Smiles appear. Laughter flows with ease. This is not coincidence. Nor is it simply psychology. It is resonance, the invisible transfer of frequency that reveals how deeply connected we all are. At the smallest levels of matter, particles refuse to exist as separate marbles. They move in entangled states, mirroring one another instantly, even when separated by distance. This truth does not stop at the microcosm, it scales up into the reality we share. Consciousness itself is entangled. You are not just a solitary observer collapsing your own private version of reality. You are part of a collective field, an invisible web of resonance that binds you to everyone else and shapes the probabilities that unfold before us. Most people know of the observer effect, the idea that attention collapses potential into actual form, but what is rarely considered is what happens when attention is multiplied. A single spotlight of awareness bends reality. A million spotlights can flood the field and force possibilities into one dominant pathway. This is why mass attention matters so much. Think about moments when news stories gripped millions of minds simultaneously. For hours or even days, people across the planet focused on the same words, images, and emotions. In those moments, reality itself felt compressed, as if the future had fewer options. as if the collective gaze was narrowing the field of what could happen next. You have lived through these compressions without necessarily naming them, but you felt the weight. The signs of this resonance are all around you. Headlines repeat in endless loops across platforms. Conversations circle the same themes. Emotional weather moves through communities like storms, carrying waves of anxiety, fear, or hope. Friends in different places awaken with strikingly similar dreams. Memes and jokes cascade across cultures at impossible speeds. None of this is random. These are signals that a group frequency has locked into coherence. That entanglement has pulled countless individuals into a single groove of probability, and just like a record player caught in a scratched groove, once the needle digs in, the same moment plays over and over again. Collective resonance, left unconscious, traps entire societies in cycles that feel inescapable. Yet the truth is, liberating awareness interrupts the loop. The moment you notice the pattern, its hold begins to weaken. To see is already to shift. When you realize you are not merely a victim of group frequency, but also a participant in shaping it, the narrative changes. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to us again?" and begin asking, "What are we amplifying together?" That shift in perspective is the pivot from helplessness to empowerment, because if entanglement can lock us into repetition, it can also unlock us into possibility. The field does not simply magnify numbers, it magnifies coherence. 10 people resonating with clarity can influence the collective as powerfully as 10,000 vibrating in confusion. The quantum field is exquisitely sensitive to signal quality. This is why the smallest coherent action can ripple far beyond what seems possible. A breath taken in alignment, a phrase spoken with conviction, a choice to hold hope instead of fear. These micro-signals leak into the field, reorganizing probability in ways that statistics cannot measure, but you can feel, so you are never just watching. You are never outside the process. Your frequency is already woven into the web. Every thought, every gesture, every act of attention contributes a thread to the tapestry of collective entanglement. The only question is whether you will continue unconsciously reinforcing the grooves of repetition, or whether you will consciously tune your signal and become part of a new pattern. You already know the answer, because you would not be here if something inside you wasn't ready to step into that role. The synchronicities pulling you, the déjà vu that feels larger than yourself, the repeating signs you cannot ignore, all of them are whispers from the field. Reminders that you are already entangled. And once you see the web, you cannot pretend you are separate from it. From this moment on, your awareness itself becomes a tuning fork, shaping not only your own life, but the collective reality we are all sharing. At the foundation of reality lies a principle, both mysterious and profoundly simple: entanglement. In physics, it describes particle linked across distance, responding to one another instantaneously, as if space itself were irrelevant. What one becomes, the other reflects. Now extend this principle beyond particles, and you begin to understand how consciousness operates in groups. Human beings are not islands of awareness floating separately in a void. We are entangled nodes in a vast living network, constantly exchanging signals of thought, feeling, and intention. Your private state of mind is never fully private. It ripples outward, touching the field that connects you to every other being. This is why the heaviness of fear or the lightness of joy can travel invisibly, influencing people you may never meet. When groups of people align, even unconsciously, something extraordinary occurs. The field begins to shift not in scattered directions but toward coherence. Coherence is the opposite of chaos. It is the difference between random noise and a choir singing in harmony. Incoherence feels jagged, unstable, confusing. Coherence feels smooth, magnetic, and alive. You know this sensation already, the deep calm that descends in a circle of meditation, the effortless rhythm of a crowd moving together at a concert, the sense of flow when a team is perfectly synchronized. These are glimpses of group coherence. The field becomes more than the sum of its parts. It amplifies itself, making certain timelines more likely to unfold. In such moments, possibility is not just observed, it is selected with far greater probability. This is where morphic resonance enters the picture. Imagine every thought, action, and ritual ever performed, leaving an imprint in a vast informational field. Over time, repeated patterns carve grooves in this field, making it easier for similar patterns to re-emerge, like paths worn into the grass by many footsteps. Morphic resonance explains why cultural habits persist, why certain ideas spread like wildfire, and why societies often repeat the same mistakes. But it also explains miracles of sudden change. When enough coherence gathers around a new possibility, the groove deepens quickly, and what once seemed impossible becomes natural. Consider how quickly technologies, fashions, or social movements can appear everywhere at once, as if the idea itself had been waiting beneath the surface until the collective was ready. That is, resonance accelerating probability into manifestation. The beauty and the danger of this mechanism lie in its neutrality. The field does not distinguish between patterns of fear and patterns of love, between destructive grooves and liberating ones. It simply amplifies what is repeated and coherent. This is why collective entanglement can feel like a trap wars, cycles of scarcity, cultural obsessions looping endlessly. The grooves of repetition are deep, yet this is also why conscious coherence is so powerful. By choosing to repeat new patterns deliberately, even in small groups, we begin to carve fresh grooves. The field remembers, and the resonance grows stronger each time the act is repeated. Think of reality as a radio spectrum. Each person is a tuner, scanning for signals. Alone, your frequency is one station among many. But when groups tune together, the volume rises. The more coherent the tuning, the louder the station becomes, until it drowns out competing static. This is why rituals, chants, and synchronized practices have always been central to human culture. They align the tuners, amplify the station, and lock the collective into a shared reality. And yet, modern life often disperses our attention, scattering the field into incoherence. The invitation is not to withdraw, but to remember when you shift your tuning, you help shift the entire station. You have likely felt this in ways you could not explain. The surge of energy when crowds erupt in unified celebration, the deep unease when fear spreads silently through a community, the sudden clarity when a small group focuses on a single vision with unwavering intention. These are not accidents. They are demonstrations of entanglement, coherence, and resonance at work. The field is alive, responsive, and participatory, and you are part of it, whether you choose to be or not. The key is to move from unconscious participation to conscious shaping, to stop being carried by grooves carved long ago and begin carving new grooves for the future. Every coherent thought, every aligned breath, every collective ritual matters more than you imagine. because the field remembers, because resonance spreads, and because the probability of tomorrow is being sculpted right now by the coherence we embody together. Have you ever experienced a moment where time seemed to bend? Not only for you, but for those around you. Perhaps you and a friend spoke the same words at the same instant, finishing each other's sentences with uncanny precision. Or maybe you noticed that multiple people in your circle dreamed of the same symbol, the same place, or the same warning in a single week. These phenomena may appear strange or even random, but they are signs of a deeper process unfolding, the phenomenology of collective entanglement. Reality is not a rigid machine ticking forward in isolation. It is a living field. And when groups become entangled, shared anomalies begin to reveal themselves. One of the most common of these anomalies is shared déjà vu. You may have felt it alone, the sensation of having lived a moment before. A subtle familiarity that cannot be explained by memory. But when two or more people look at each other and say, "Haven't we done this before?" the resonance intensifies. Shared déjà vu is not coincidence. It is the mind catching glimpses of parallel timelines that multiple individuals are simultaneously accessing. It is as if reality momentarily overlaps itself, and the group becomes aware of a groove they have traveled together in more than one probability stream. In those instants, something profound whispers, you are not merely reliving your own past, you are colliding with the memory of the collective field. Another signal of group entanglement is synchronicity magnified across communities. You think of someone and they call, you dream of a symbol and suddenly it appears on billboards, in conversations, in the lyrics of songs. But what happens when hundreds or thousands begin to experience similar synchronicities? A symbol emerges in the culture numbers, repeating, animals appearing, a phrase spoken everywhere at once, and people across continents feel its presence simultaneously. This is the field signaling that coherence has reached a threshold. What was once personal synchronicity evolves into collective synchronicity, and reality itself begins to shift in response. And then there are glitches, the moments when reality stutters. A group forgets the same detail simultaneously. A crowd swears a color or a phrase used to be different. Entire communities remember alternate histories that never officially happened. While skeptics dismiss these as false memories, they are far more than mental errors. They are bleed-throughs between timelines. Moments where entangled groups slide across probability streams and notice the discontinuities. You may have experienced the so-called Mandela effect, where millions recall events or facts differently than recorded history. What matters here is not whether the textbook is correct, but that the collective mind is accessing parallel versions of reality, each equally valid within the quantum field. These shared anomalies remind us that consciousness is not locked in isolation. When you experience them with others, you are witnessing the evidence that the boundaries between minds are far thinner than you were taught. You are entangled in a reality that breathes through many. And the glitches, synchronicities, and déjà vu are its pulse. They are invitations to wake up from the trance of linear, solitary perception. They urge you to realize that when the group field shifts, the entire timeline shifts with it. The most important part is not to treat these experiences as curiosities, but as confirmations. Each shared déjà vu is proof that time is nonlinear. Each collective synchronicity is proof that meaning itself is woven into the field. Each glitch is proof that reality is more fluid than you were taught. These are not accidents, but signals that the field is responsive, that you are moving with others across dimensions of probability. So the next time you and a friend feel the same moment repeat, or you notice the same symbol echoing across the culture, or you hear entire groups remembering a different past, pause and recognize what is happening. You are not broken. You are not imagining things. You are entangled. You are standing inside the living phenomenon of collective consciousness rewriting itself in real time. And as you become more aware of these signs, you will find that the glitches intensify, the synchronicities multiply, and the déjà vu deepens, not to confuse you, but to remind you that reality is pliable and the collective field is alive. What you witness together is not merely strange, it is the evidence that you are already shaping the future. What if the greatest secret about reality is not that you create your own world, but that reality itself is decided in the space between us? For centuries, we have been told that manifestation is an individual practice, that if you just focus enough, visualize enough, or discipline your thoughts, your private world will change. But the truth is far more unsettling and infinitely more powerful. Reality is not shaped primarily by individuals. It is sculpted by the collective field, by the entangled frequencies of countless beings vibrating together. And here is the shock. The reality you experience every day is not just the reflection of your personal choices. It is the compromise, the overlap, the entanglement of the collective web. You are not only living in your own projection, you are standing inside a shared construction, a dream woven by millions. This is why certain loops feel impossible to break, why fear spreads faster than reason, why cycles of scarcity, division, or violence seem to replay across centuries. It is not that you failed as an individual observer, it is that the groove has been reinforced by collective coherence. 1,000 voices repeating the same expectation carve grooves too deep for one person's willpower to easily escape. It is like trying to swim against a tidal current with nothing but your arms. The force is overwhelming, not because you are weak, but because the current is collective. But here lies the hidden key. The field is exquisitely sensitive, and the collective is not as fixed as it appears. Coherence matters more than numbers. 10 people vibrating in clarity can outweigh 10,000 vibrating in chaos. A single clear frequency resonates more strongly than scattered noise. The universe does not tally heads, it amplifies resonance. And that means that the loops of history, however ancient, are not unbreakable. The moment coherence is introduced, the moment a small group embodies a new possibility with enough stability, the field begins to shift. Probability reorganizes. What felt inevitable collapses, and entire timelines redirect. Think of the butterfly effect, but magnified. A single act of embodied coherence, a breath aligned, a declaration spoken with conviction. A ritual performed in unity can ripple outward until the groove of repetition breaks. This is why every great shift in history began not with a majority, but with a minority who refused to reinforce the old frequency. They were the ones who remembered that the field does not require numbers, it requires resonance. And when their clarity reached a tipping point, the collective web rearranged itself. What had seemed impossible became obvious. What had been ridiculed became celebrated. What was once forbidden became inevitable. The shock, then, is not that the collective shapes your life. That part is already happening, whether you notice or not. The shock is that you are not powerless inside it. You are an active node of influence, already broadcasting into the field. Every thought, every gesture, every act of presence is a transmission. This is where the old story dissolves. You have been told that you must wait for the world to change, that your job is to endure until enough people wake up, but the reality is the opposite. The field is waiting for you to change. Not someday, not when millions join you. Now, because each coherent signal matters immediately. When you stop feeding the old groove, when you withdraw your attention from the endless repetition of fear, when you choose to embody a new resonance even in solitude, the field registers it. The web quivers, and the balance of probability shifts. You may think this sounds too grandiose for one person, but remember, the field does not weigh quantity. It measures resonance. A single note can retune an entire instrument. A single pebble can disrupt the stillness of a pond. The field is listening always, not to the loudest voices, but to the most coherent ones, and that means you hold more influence than you have ever dared to believe. The collective dream is not imposed on you from outside, it is woven through you from within. You are already participating in the entanglement. The only decision left is whether you will continue unconsciously repeating the old dream, or whether you will consciously seed the new one. This is the moment when the hidden truth becomes unavoidable. The reality you inhabit is not fixed, not predetermined, not beyond your reach. It is fluid, sensitive, and alive. It is woven in every instant by the resonance of the collective. And that collective begins with you. You are not here to wait for change. You are here to be the frequency that makes change unavoidable. And when enough of us remember this truth, when enough of us stop waiting and start embodying, the field itself will reorganize into coherence. The loops will break, the dream will shift, and what once felt impossible will suddenly feel like the most natural thing in the world when you realize that reality is sculpted by the collective field. It is easy to feel overwhelmed. You see the vastness of the web, the weight of countless voices, and the grooves of history carved deep into the fabric of time. But here is where empowerment begins. The field is not waiting for the masses to wake up all at once. It responds immediately to coherence. No matter how small, this means you are never powerless. And the shift is never postponed. The collective entanglement is sensitive to every signal you send, and that sensitivity gives you influence far beyond what you might imagine. The first step is subtle yet revolutionary awareness itself, simply recognizing the loops, noticing the repeating grooves, and naming the patterns weakens them. Awareness is the lever that lifts the needle from the record. Without awareness, you unconsciously reinforce the cycle. With awareness, you become the one who interrupts it. So whenever you notice fear rippling through the collective, pause. Whenever you catch yourself repeating the same scarcity story, pause. These pauses are not passive. They are cracks in the loop. Spaces where something new can enter. From awareness flows embodiment. It is not enough to think about coherence, or to read about it, or to hope for it. You must embody the frequency you want to see amplified. This is the secret every mystic has whispered, and every ritual has enacted. The body is the transmitter. When you breathe slowly, you are telling the field that calm is possible. When you speak words of clarity, you are imprinting coherence into the web. When you place your hand on your chest and affirm, "I am aligned with my highest timeline," you are not just comforting yourself, you are broadcasting a signal into the fabric of probability. To anchor this truth, begin with micro-rituals. They do not need to be grand ceremonies. They need only to be consistent, coherent, and intentional. Take 3 breaths whenever you feel the weight of fear around you, imagining that with each exhale, you are dissolving one strand of the old groove. Write a declaration on a piece of paper. This loop ends now and tear it in half, signaling to your subconscious and to the field that you are no longer feeding the repetition. Light a candle not only as decoration, but as an anchor of attention, a reminder that even a small flame transforms the darkness around it. These are small acts, yet within the field, they are magnified. Another practice is resonance alignment. Before entering a group setting, whether a meeting, a family gathering, or even a digital space, pause and tune yourself. Visualize your frequency as a note, steady and clear, and set the intention that your presence will bring coherence into the room. Do not underestimate this. Groups unconsciously entrain to the most coherent signal present. That person can be you, and the more often you practice this alignment, the more natural it becomes, until your coherence ripples outward without effort. Empowerment also comes through choice of focus. Whatever you give attention to becomes nourishment for the field. This does not mean ignoring the world's challenges. It means choosing to respond from clarity rather than fear. When you read the news, notice whether you are amplifying panic or anchoring perspective. When you speak to others, ask yourself, am I spreading the old loop, or am I offering a new groove? In this way, every conversation becomes a chance to reshape reality. The most profound realization is that empowerment is collective by design. You are not meant to do this alone. Find even one other person willing to practice coherence with you. Breathe together, declare together, share synchronicities instead of dismissing them. Each act of shared coherence multiplies its impact, and the field remembers. Over time, these practices accumulate until what once felt like a whisper becomes a chorus. So empowerment is not distant, nor is it grandiose. It begins with awareness, embodiment, and simple acts repeated with intention. You are already entangled, already transmitting, already influencing. The choice is whether to transmit unconsciously or consciously, and when you choose consciously, even in the smallest of ways, you shift not only your personal trajectory, but the probability field of us all. That is empowerment at the quantum level, the knowing that your presence matters, your coherence matters, and your ritual matters. You are not here to wait for the field to change. You are here to change the field with every breath you take. Empowerment becomes real only when it is lived, not as an abstract idea, but as a daily rhythm. The collective field does not shift because you had a single moment of clarity or performed a ritual once. It shifts because you integrate coherence into the fabric of your life, becoming a stable node that others unconsciously align to. Integration is about weaving resonance into the ordinary bell, carrying it into your mornings, your work, your conversations, and even the way you fall asleep at night. This is where coherence stops being a practice and starts being your natural state. Integration begins with the small choices you repeat. Every morning is an opening, a fresh moment to align your signal. Before rushing into screens, messages, or obligations, pause and tune yourself. A simple breath, a short declaration, or even placing your hand on your chest can reset your frequency. When you start the day coherent, the ripple follows you into everything else. You walk into rooms differently. People feel the steadiness before you speak. You are not forcing influence. You are radiating coherence. And the field entrains to you. In daily interactions, integration looks like awareness of the signals you are transmitting. Every word is a transmission. Every gesture, a broadcast. Ask yourself, am I reinforcing the loop of fear and scarcity? Or am I introducing a new groove? This does not mean policing every thought, but cultivating gentle vigilance. When you catch yourself amplifying panic, you pause. When you hear repetition of the same tired story, you redirect with clarity. These micro moments matter. The field is listening not to the perfection of your performance, but to the consistency of your presence. Integration also requires resilience. You will encounter incoherence. You will walk into spaces filled with tension, conversations drenched in division, environments buzzing with chaos. To live as a coherent node is not to avoid these spaces, but to carry your resonance into them without losing yourself. Think of coherence as an anchor. The storm can rage, the winds can howl, but you remain tethered. Others may sway, but your frequency becomes a stabilizing presence. This is how coherence spreads, not through withdrawal, but through participation without absorption. You are in the storm, but you are not of it. Another layer of integration is embodiment in the body itself. Too often, spiritual practice remains abstract, floating in concepts, but coherence is physical. It is how you breathe, how you sit, how you move. When you walk slowly and deliberately, you broadcast calm. When you eat with attention, you anchor presence. When you rest fully, you teach the field that restoration is possible. Living as a coherent node means your body becomes a transmitter, carrying resonance not only through thoughts, but through every cell. Night is as important as morning. Before sleep, take a moment to align again. The field does not pause when you dream, it continues to register your frequency. Set an intention as you lie down. I dream in coherence. I awaken in clarity. Your subconscious will tune to that signal, and you may find your dreams shifting, becoming more vivid, more aligned with your highest timeline. Even in rest, you are shaping the field. Integration also thrives through connection. Seek out those who are practicing coherence themselves. Even one or two aligned companions magnify your stability. Together you become a cluster of resonance, more powerful than you realize. When you speak with coherence, share synchronicities, or meditate side by side, you are not simply supporting each other, you are reinforcing the collective field. The entanglement grows stronger where coherence is shared. Ultimately, integration is not about perfection, but persistence. You do not need to maintain unbroken clarity. You only need to return, again and again, to coherence. Each return strengthens the groove. Each return trains the field to recognize the signal. Over time, coherence becomes your home frequency, and others will feel it without knowing why. You will notice more synchronicities, more flow, more ease, not because life has become simpler, but because you are no longer entangled unconsciously. You are living as a conscious node, steady in the web, shaping reality through presence alone. There is a moment, subtle yet undeniable, when you begin to realize that your awakening is not just your own. It is easy to imagine enlightenment as a private journey, a solitary climb to a higher peak of awareness, but the truth is far more profound. Awakening is collective by nature. You are not rising alone. You are rising within a field that is rising with you. Every shift you embody echoes outward, and every shift others embody returns to you amplified. This is the hidden promise of collective consciousness, that no effort is wasted, no breath is isolated, no act of coherence goes unseen. The web remembers, and the web responds. Perhaps you have already felt it, the surge of hope that comes not from your own clarity, but from sensing that countless others are reaching for the same light. The strange synchronicities that arrive not only to guide you but to remind you that others are walking parallel paths. The sudden cultural waves where conversations about awakening, about quantum reality, about the deeper nature of existence appear everywhere at once. These are not random trends. They are signals that the field itself is awakening, that humanity is stirring from a long sleep, and that you are part of that stirring. For generations, the dominant story has been separation. You were told you are alone, that survival depends on competition. That meaning must be constructed by the individual in a universe of empty space. But awakening dissolves that illusion. It reveals that you were never separate, never isolated, never cut off from the whole. Awakening shows that your mind is not merely inside your skull, it is threaded into a vast fabric of consciousness. When you feel the joy of another, it uplifts you. When you radiate compassion, it travels farther than you know. Awakening is not about reaching the top of a mountain. It is about realizing you were always the mountain, and that everyone else is the mountain too. The promise of collective awakening is not utopia. It is not a fantasy of perfect harmony without struggle. It is something deeper and more real. It is the recognition that even amidst struggle, a current of coherence is rising. It is the knowing that even in times of chaos, seeds of resonance are sprouting everywhere. The field is shifting, slowly but undeniably, towards greater awareness. And each moment you choose coherence, you contribute to that tide. The promise is not that life becomes easy, it is that life becomes awake, responsive, and infused with meaning at every level. Imagine what happens when coherence spreads not just through individuals or small groups, but through humanity at scale. Picture millions of people choosing awareness over reaction, choosing presence over distraction, choosing compassion over fear. The resonance would be unstoppable, just as one tuning fork sets another vibrating dot. Each awakened person activates countless others. The wave grows not linearly but exponentially, until the field itself reaches a tipping point. At that point, the collective dream shifts entirely. Reality reorganizes around a new baseline of coherence, and the loops of repetition that bound us for centuries dissolve. And here lies the greatest hope. The awakening is irreversible. Once a person has glimpsed the interconnected nature of reality, they cannot truly return to the illusion of separation. They may forget, they may resist, they may struggle, but the seed has been planted, awareness has been tasted, and the taste remains. Multiply that by millions, and you see why the tide cannot be stopped. The collective field has already shifted. The question is no longer if awakening will spread, but how quickly and how deeply it will reshape our world. So let yourself feel the magnitude of this moment. You are not a spectator of awakening, you are a participant. You are not waiting for the collective to rise, you are the collective rising. Every breath you take in coherence, every act of compassion, every ritual of alignment is part of this larger movement. The promise of collective consciousness is that you are never alone, never powerless, never insignificant. The field is alive, and it is rising through you. As you recognize this, hope ceases to be a fragile wish and becomes a living certainty. You know that the loops of fear cannot last forever. Because the frequency of awakening is stronger, you know that even the smallest coherent act matters, because it ripples outward infinitely, and you know, with a clarity deeper than belief, that you are part of something vast, unscient, and unstoppable, the collective awakening of humanity. This is the promise, not perfection. But participation, not escape. But embodiment, not waiting. But living now as if the awakened world were already here. Because in truth, it is. You are feeling it. You are broadcasting it. You are helping to make it undeniable. And when enough of us remember, the world will not just look different, it will be different. Vibrating with the resonance of a collective consciousness finally awake, you have walked through the signs, the loops, the hidden truths, the practices, and the promise, and now you stand at the edge of something irreversible. The realization is simple, yet life-altering. You are not a passive observer inside a world given to you. You are an entangled creator within a collective field that responds to your every breath. The awakening is not coming someday. It is unfolding now. Through you, through me, through all of us woven into this web of consciousness. This is the moment to claim it, not with hesitation, but with clarity, not with waiting, but with embodiment. Reality is sculpted by coherence. And coherence begins the instant you decide to align. You do not need millions. You do not need permission. The field is already listening, amplifying, remembering every signal you send. The loops of fear dissolve the moment you withdraw attention from them. The new world emerges the moment you embody it. So declare it now. With your own voice, I am a coherent note of awakening. I no longer feed the old loops. I align with the frequency of love, of clarity, of collective transformation. My presence shapes the field. My coherence shifts reality. The awakening is happening through me. And it is unstoppable. Write it in the comments. Speak it aloud. Whisper it into the silence of your room. Every declaration is a seed. Every seed, a resonance. Every resonance, a contribution to the collective dream. And together, our voices become the chorus that reshapes reality itself. You did not find this message by chance. You are here because you are part of this shift. The web is alive. The awakening is now, and your declaration is the signal that ensures it cannot be ignored.